Hey y'all, come do some art with us. This is a drawing of a fox that I did with my niece Veronica, who is awesome. So make sure you leave enough room for the ears. This fox has ears that are almost as tall as his head. So as you're planning your paper space, draw it with your finger first. And then I want you to find the middle of it. And we are going to make some very light planning lines of where things are going to go, like the nose. If any of this is going too fast, I didn't want the video to be like an hour long, so just play it in slow motion and my voice will sound really scary. Make a little circle for his nose. And then we're going to plan out where his eyes are. So look at how I'm going about halfway in between the middle of the oval. And again, make sure you make these lines so light because you're probably going to mess up because that's what drawing is. It's a lot of trying and stopping and trying and stopping. And then look at where his ears come in. I know circles don't have corners, but it's almost like there's a corner, the top left and right corner of the oval that we're adding the ears on. And I made those little tiny planning dots first to kind of help me make sure that the ears were the same height. Sometimes when you're drawing triangles, they can get away from you. And then we're putting this little tiny circle that we're mostly going to erase just to show where a tuft of hair is going to come out later. And then we're looking at the relationships. Drawing is all about making observations about relationships. And then you can see I'm starting to plan where his neck is. And look at the photo. His neck is not just coming straight down. It's at this like almost a 45-degree angle. So just try and copy what is on my page and what is in that photo that you can see. And now we're going to make a really creepy set of eyes for this fox. This fox is going to look really disturbing for a little bit, and that's okay. It's part of the process. And then we're adding a little circle that is going to be for the highlights, just very lightly, and we're not going to shade this in. Then we're going to do the pupil. And look on the drawing how the way his iris is, it looks like his pupil, it almost looks like a cat, tall and skinny. To make this fox less shocked, we're going to draw a straight line across the top of his eye. And from there, we're going to add some shading to the iris, or the colored part of the fox's eye. And this will start to make him look alive. And remember, don't shade in that circle of highlight that we've left there. So for the nose, we're doing the same thing where we're making that flat line on the top. His nose really is kind of like a jelly bean or like a rounded off rectangle shape. I've put that other horizontal line just under the top of the nose, and it's a planning line, and then we have like the V shape. That's the bottom of the nose. Put in his little nostrils, which are pretty far down on that jelly bean shape, and then we're going to add his little jowls on his snout. I don't know if that's the right word, but you can see what I'm doing. They're just kind of soft and rounded and sweet. And then we're going to do a couple little planning lines for where his follicles are that his whiskers come out. Then I'm taking my eraser and I'm erasing those planning dots that we had. And I'm putting this center line on his ears because his fur kind of it almost makes like a stripe because it's coming over his ears. So we're going to start with shading. And with our shading, we're doing a couple things. We're adding the light and dark to make it look three-dimensional. We're also adding the texture of the fur. And it can take a little bit of practice. I just want you to be kind to yourself because you've probably never shaded a fox ear in before. You can see I erased part of that circle so that I can make sure that I have that little poofy part down at the bottom of his ear, but it's not separate from the rest of his ear. So try to make different directions when you are doing your shading lines to show that the fur is going in all different directions. And it can be a little tricky around here because you can start to add too much and kind of lose your drawing. Just make sure you keep the shape that we've set down. And right now, you can see around his eyes, he is a very angry fox, but don't worry, we're going to work that. Look at how the darks really kind of come up around his eyes. So just try and copy what you see in the photo and interpret it. And this is the part that takes the longest, and just kind of have fun with it. So remember that foxes they have like the bottom of their cheeks and their neck are a lot lighter. So as I'm adding shading, I'm making sure that the top part of his head is darker than the bottom of his head. And so just kind of play around with it. Again, make sure you keep the shape of the overall shape of his head. It can be easy to get lost in all that fun fur. I'm using my finger to blend a little, but less is more. Don't get crazy with the blending with your finger. Then we're going to take our Sharpie, and we really want our darks to be very dark. So that's why I have a black marker. And the blackest part of this fox are his eyes and his nose. And that's the only part of the drawing that we're going to use the Sharpie on. And you can see I'm not just drawing one straight line. I'm doing kind of light, sketchy lines with the marker. It's a little easier that way. It's hard to make a perfect line with a Sharpie, so a lot of short lines add up to a pretty great line. You can see I'm leaving the highlight on the nose too. I'm not coloring it in. Once the Sharpies all put down, I'm taking my pencil and I'm going back and popping some of my shadows. You want the contrast. You want both the light and the dark, and you need to leave room for both in your drawing. You don't want it all light or all dark. You need all of it. And that will help this fox kind of come alive in your art. Then we're going to be very brave and we're going to do his little whiskers. So I'm making little dots along where I had those planning lines. And then from there, you guys, we're going to do something scary and make these big dark lines for his whiskers. I believe in you. You can do it. And then we're going to come and just like look at the picture and then look at our drawings and see where we can add, where we can make things more clear. And remember that his chest, his neck, the bottom of his half of his face are a lot lighter than the top half. So as you are coming to the finish, then keep that in mind so that you don't make, even though it's in shadow, that you can keep it lighter than the darker fur. And again, I'm using my pencil to add the texture and the shading. And look at how fluffy he looks now. I'm using my finger again to just blend. You don't want to blend all that beautiful texture away, but you can use your finger as one of your tools. And then I'm taking the eraser and erasing some of the planning lines that we don't need anymore so that it keeps his chest and his neck really light. Come back in and make any last minute adjustments. This is kind of a fun part. And then I want you to celebrate your drawing. These are the drawings that Veronica and her friend made. I love that she said fox. And they're all going to look different because you're all different artists. You got this.